Gone was the ability to read or watch TV. People had become shapes, and buses difficult to see, let alone read their numbers, and all in the space of 2 months or so. Living alone, as I did and still do, served to compound matters. The only good thing that stands out now from that period was the love of a few good, and I mean very good, friends and family members. Convinced by them, I went to see my GP, not that he was going to restore my sight, but he did prescribe a mild antidepressant. After a few weeks, this brought something of a settling effect. On the basis that anything within reason might help, counselling wasn't a big step to take, and it did help, particularly to encourage me away from those long, empty days of nothing, starting with little events such as meeting someone for coffee, visiting my parents, and other things, however small, that I put into a mental diary to look forward to across the week. The important thing was recognition of the need for counselling and the willingness to embrace it. However, this period of near despair of 4 months or so, which remains now as a blur, was to change for the better. The first little kickstart was my son's wedding, which most definitely could not be let pass without that familiar few words from the proud father of the groom. Not a gifted impromptu speaker, my previous experience was limited to some business presentations and a few retirement speeches, but now supporting notes, which I had used in the past, were not possible. After some hours of mental preparation and nervously standing to my feet, microphone in hand, I began my well-rehearsed words. With no fallback, would I make it through? Very quickly, my business experience of composure came to my rescue as I worked through the structure of my memorized speech. Soon, with nothing forgotten, and to great applause from the guests, my parental duty was done, and later I was told, by all accounts, it was the best speech of the day. Unaware, I had discovered what transpired to be a life-changing principle to the confused world of someone experiencing serious sight loss, a delicate spark of illumination in the tunnel which needed to be nurtured into life. This was to be a turning point, small but nevertheless a little change of focus. A spark of motivation was born. Some tasks that I would once have consumed for breakfast and that have gone totally out of scope for the previous 4 or 5 months began to clamour for solutions. The most immediate challenge was the need for a little wicket gate to be installed in a wooden fence in our church car park. I realised this task may be beyond the reach of many sighted people, but the key thought was that this was something well within my past experience and ability. But a little adjustment was needed, such as how to use a tape measure without reading, or a saw without sacrificing a body part, and hammering a nail without hitting the wrong one. This was later to progress to a return to electric saws, and worse. How this was achieved is not the purpose of this article, rather the principle that can apply to anyone. Other people's pastimes and skills may be totally different. Mine were fairly advanced DIY, hill walking, cycling. Yours may be cooking, golf, swimming, music, the gym, reading, gardening, and so on. The question is, how can they be adapted into a sometimes scary world of sight loss? The human brain is versatile, and with the application of a little ingenuity and the use of other senses, it's amazing what can be achieved. Yes, a little help from friends or family goes a long way, not much different from the sighted world where it's just different learning curves. So, the principle in summary is to think about those pre-sight loss activities and work on them with the other senses, particularly feeling and a bit of ingenuity too. 10 years later, I have lost some things that just don't work for a visually impaired person anymore, but others have been developed as replacements. Are there disappointments? Of course there are, many, large and small, like loss of freedom to go where I wish, inability to read to my grandchildren, and many, many more. Disappointment is a poor companion that does not deserve much time, as it only serves as a reminder of what I can't do. I prefer to think of some adventure, however small, that takes me away from that dark hole rather than towards it. Things such as trying out a new recipe, exploring a new bus route, a new audiobook, and flying unaccompanied. Things that may not sound adventurous in the sighted world, but in contrast for those with sight loss, give a sense of achievement that is gratifying and allows us to engage with others. Continuing sight decline brings new challenges as some things do slip out of range, and frustration is a regular visitor who enters without even ringing the doorbell. Determination, albeit rather shy and consequently hard to find, is a better friend. With continuing sight loss and never knowing the future even day by day, it would be very presumptuous, if not arrogant, to say further decline won't faze me. Now, a decade on, if I could wind my sight back to where this article began, that would be so welcome. With only a fraction of that version, motivation and ingenuity are continuing challenges. Sometimes elusive, but a password to sanity. Of course, there are days when that hole threatens, but that fragile guard still holds. I pray that it won't breach one day, and I end up in its murky depths again. A day, a week at a time. Two other vital ingredients in my rehabilitation were my mobility cane and technology. These dramatically enhanced my mobility out and about and facilitated circulation in public. Having adjusted to my mobility cane physically and psychologically, it also overcame the embarrassment of otherwise appearing to act a little odd in public. My computer and many other electronic gadgets have brought opportunities for mobility, listening to reading material, and exploring new skills. One of my discoveries was writing short dramas for use in church services, leading to some producing and directing, and even an attempt at acting. See www.parabolas.org. That's parabalos.org. Whether you are already a competent user, a novice, or maybe not there at all, the benefits to be gained from the energy invested in transitioning to assistive aids or software should not be underestimated. Keeping in touch with the world, writing, listening to books, etc., yields huge rewards. Yes, something I was interested in before, now a replacement for other lost activities. All facilitated by my laptop with assistive software, and I only have low-level computer skills. In conclusion, life's pathway can enter various tunnels, and I hope this article will be of some help not just to the visually impaired, but to anyone going through a tunnel experience. Sometimes I am asked if I am angry with God on account of this disability. I can honestly say no, but I do pray that He will help me continue to adjust, accept, and move on with my life. And I do thank God for the mobility I do have, and so many blessings I am privileged to enjoy in life. Silver linings. It is said that every cloud has a silver lining. Just look out for it. So here is just one example. It may be hard to imagine how a visually impaired person can negotiate an airport and take a flight alone. Well, let's take a little journey together. I travel to family in London and elsewhere quite frequently. My journey begins by taking a bus from my local town to Dublin Airport. I have learned by heart my route into the terminal building. From the main entrance, I turn 45 degrees to the right until I hear the escalator, and then identify the up one. Then, at the top, I turn 360 degrees and take about 20 paces. There, on my left, should be my place of refuge, always hoping the powers that be haven't decided to relocate it, but I have a backup plan for that eventuality. As I present myself and my boarding pass at the Special Assistance Desk, this is where my silver lining experience begins. No more worrying about getting to the correct boarding gate, checking monitors, and listening to announcements. It is mandatory for every European airport to provide an assistance service for those with disabilities, provided it is booked with the initial flight.